Hey everyone, it's Courtney Barriger, your host of Environmental Style Now, the A to Z podcast on all that is sustainable fashion. Today I'm coming to you live from Portugal. Whoa! Okay, first time recording from a new country, so that's exciting. I mean, for me, at the very least. Anyway, so here I am today with Alyssa Couture. She's here to share with us highlights from her upcoming book, Healthy Fashion. It is a holistic approach on how to take fashion and make a larger statement with your life, one that is both nurturing and healthy. Let's jump right in. Hello, I'm Courtney Barriger, and this is ES Now. My guest today, Alyssa Couture, has written a compassionate guidebook on fashion for health called Healthy Fashion. Now, we are at an exciting time where fashion is in transition. We're slowly catching on to the idea that producing and promoting fashion in pursuit of the mind, body, spirit is and should be the new way. And we will be hearing about some of Alyssa's methods for making health a focus for fashion for the benefit of all. Let's jump right in. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what you do?
Yes, well, I am the author of Healthy Fashion, The Deeper Truths, and I'm the owner of Healthy Fashion Campaign. Healthy Fashion Campaign is a campaign that's all about fashion in its modern approach, fashion as a healing tool, healing modality, fashion to support the body in a medicinal way, in a curative way, an alternative health treatment. So all of my work really comprises fashion for the human health and fashion for the environment. And because we really can't have one without the other. And with my work previous to my Healthy Fashion campaign and authoring my book, Healthy Fashion, I did dabble in entrepreneurship with having a small handmade fashion brand. I also had a nice news media site where I was also approaching fashion industry members and writing lots of journalism in my eco fashion blog. But I kind of wanted to take a turn from eco fashion and move into the direction of the wellness trend. And a big piece of my work, it involves health and fashion in the wellness sector because of my background in metaphysics, my background in spirituality and holistic arts, meditation, yoga, living in ashrams and monasteries. I really delved into the metaphysical side, which made me want to bring fashion into a new direction of fashion for wellness. And it's not something I'm helping support the trend, but it's already happening. It's occurring. It's slow. I mean, it's not like really rapid right now, but people are catching on. And I think the industry is already producing healthy fashion, like yourself, Courtney. If people are already incorporating healthy fashion elements, which there's hundreds of different elements and aspects of what makes a brand healthy, and some brands can pick two and some brands can pick several, more than two. And I think it's all about sort of practicing fashion for health, being healthy fashion practitioner. So that's my work as a author and as an entrepreneur. I would consider myself a fashion intuitive, a fashion psychic, and also a healthy fashion practitioner, consulting and helping support wardrobes and as well as business brands with their fashions.
That is so cool. I've studied a lot in sustainability and the eco idea behind fashion. I would love to talk more about how fashion can be a part of your health ecosystem. So what is your approach, your metaphysical approach to it? I'd love to hear more about that.
So my metaphysical approach to fashion would possibly be the biggest, most important aspect would be fashion in the five bodies. Fashion for mental health, fashion for emotional health, fashion for physical health, fashion for spiritual health, fashion for energetic health. So what I do is I take the body and the human and I look at it multidimensionally. So we are all multidimensional beings. And when we factor in fashion within the specific five bodies, we're really tuning into how fashion can support us, and not just for physical health, but through every single of the bodies. And it can get into the direction of our mentality, how we perceive fashion, perceiving fashion as shallow and superficial and egotistical, versus perceiving fashion as a way to honor and respect the individual and create that sense of divinity within fashion and the human connection. So that's just one aspect of fashion and mental health. And then we can bring in fashion and the emotions, the emotional body. And that kind of ties in with our physical body. And plant-based fibers are crystalline in structure. So what a crystal does is it will absorb and transmute residual emotions. So when we wear the plant-based fibers, tencel, lyocell, cotton, linen, hemp, bamboo, rami, all sorts of plant-based fabrics, whichever you like, we're actually helping our emotional body, and we're helping transmute the emotions that could be, stuck in within us, and kind of transmuting them. And I think that, I don't really talk too much about plant-based fibers with fashion brands, because it's not possible really to create a fashion brand 100% plant-based. It is if you're in tropical climates, but right now, a lot of companies, we really have to make do with polyesters, and I still wear some polyester. It's not something to be hated. I respect it completely, but it all started in the 1930s, polyesters, and we didn't have to keep producing it, but because of the fast fashion that took over and the less labor, we really have to revamp our technology in order for brands and companies to take part in producing more and more plant-based. But plant-based ideally is very helpful for our emotional body as well as our physical body, because it's pH balanced, it's breathable and whatnot. Did I miss something? Is there anything that you have a comment on, or?
Oh, spiritual body. I'd love to hear about how fashion affects the spiritual body.
Okay. Well, basically, I like to tune into the spirit body as being, part of our consciousness, part of our energy. And some people don't really understand, well, what are we talking about with energy? Well, our body's made up of the elements of the universe. Our body is made up of the elements of the planets and the planet Earth. So we're basically made up of these elements, which is made up of these energy, and which also can be considered electricity. So we have this electricity within our body, and when we choose to wear certain silhouettes, and I think you're really in tune with this because I've seen your designs. When you wear certain silhouettes, certain tactile textures, certain fabrics, specific seam lines that go in specific directions, there's all sorts of different elements, even the colors. We're dealing with the colors of the fabrics. Visual creativity, visual art within the clothing can give us a spiritual healing. And that's just one aspect of it. There's so many different branches we can take with fashion and spiritual self, but really, I am choosing to promote, as well as many brands and fashion companies, fashion that is enlightening, fashion that is activating the consciousness of the individual. And as you probably know, have you heard of the spiritual awakening happening on Earth?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, yeah.
But I'd love to hear more about it from you.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that you've heard of the spiritual awakening on Earth, but basically, I have heard that we are transmutating. Our bodies are activating. We're bringing new levels of DNA that's being activated. And through this spiritual awakening, where we are kind of uh, letting go of the negativity, the pollution, the toxicity, and all the stuff that's bringing us into this low vibration, we have fashion as a tool, fashion as in like a channel. And when I say channel, as spiritual beings that we can choose to step into ourselves as a channel and use our clothes to participate in that sense of channeling. And when I say channeling, I'm not, delving into, the esoteric. I'm meaning in most simple terms. When we are channels, we are basically divine beings representing our higher self. So, fashion and spirituality is a way to connect with our own inner self. And fashion that is not spiritual is, the satanic evil, the satanic cults, the evil on the planet, all of the stuff that is sort of negative vibe. There's lots of different symbolisms and things that we can step away from. And it's not even about that. It could be as simple as a t-shirt that's pulling the wrong way on the body, that could actually be tampering with our whole harmony and bringing us off balance.
Or wearing the wrong size of clothes too, or it's
exactly, yes,
squeezing the lymphatic system so you're not able to actually fully function.
Yes, that's the perfect example. And I had a sweatshirt that was too tight at the collar. It was a hoodie sweatshirt, but it was so perfect. It was like everything was so perfect, but it was choking me. So I eventually have to stop wearing it, even though I still do. But I'm having this like battle with this sweatshirt, which I know I'm not supposed to be wearing it, but it's continuing to choke me. So I could definitely easily alter it, and I just don't know why I haven't. But those little things, those little details do add up and make fashion less helpful for us.
I think that's a really beautiful way to look at it, especially if you're, actively seeking to become more spiritual. I mean, there are these costumes that we put on. I mean, monks wear what they wear, the orange outfit, the Tibetan monks, and, even like priests wear their little collars and nuns wear their habits. Like there are these like almost costumes that come along with certain spiritual aspects. And, Burning Man is about to happen right now. So I think a lot of the people are wearing their flowy garbs and their goddess, inspired looks. And I do think that you're right. Like fashion does tap into the spiritual and how it inspires us as well. I've never really spent much time thinking about that, but I do. Yeah, that's a really beautiful way to look at it.
Well, I think too, people subconsciously tap into it. Like with yourself as a designer, you're intuitively tapping into it subconsciously. So it's already something that's within you, and that's you're kind of in tune with. But I think that the best part of this new movement of wellness trend in the wellness trend sector is sort of getting into the idea that fashion can really bring us into this state of enlightenment. And when you said Burning Man and all the costumes and everything, I think that fashion is definitely a sacred ritual. And, I love the title of your your brand, Holding Court. I think there's something very magical about it. And I think that when we tap into that magic of fashion, which to me is the most inspiring, it really brings fashion into a new light. And with fashion marketing, we really can bring healthy fashion or wellness fashion or conscious fashion into a very progressive modern direction when we choose to market fashion as a way that can support us multidimensionally and spiritually and alternatively.
I have a question about the fabrics and their crystalline nature and the vibration of them. Have you done any research into what fabrics might have the highest vibration or most precious crystalline shape? And I'd love to hear more about that.
Yes, I have done quite a bit of research on fabrics, and in my book, I picked 36 specific fabrics that are of highest vibration and that will help heal the earth as well as humans. So I would definitely choose linen as a top fiber. It is in the Bible, it has been said to be some certain frequency that is incredibly healing. I think that royalty would go to sleep in bed linens. They would sleep in, oh yeah, in hospitals, their patients would sleep on bed linens and they wouldn't wake up with any bed sores. So the linen fabric has some healing properties. So I definitely would suggest linen, and I love linen jersey. It's not very common, but I've owned some linen jersey, and it doesn't wrinkle as much, and it's a great modern fabric. And then there's cotton, which is a great fabric. I mean, it's really popular and one of the most popular plant-based fabrics out there. And cotton in India, in the institute, in a clinic, they studied the effects of, well, they studied the frequency and the vibration of synthetic polyester compared with cotton. And they found that cotton was sattvic, which is Indian Sanskrit for pure, and polyester was tamasic, which is Indian Sanskrit for toxic. And as an energy healer, I'm not a scientist, so I don't really talk those types of terms in regards to specifically how and why. But in general, you can sense it and feel it that polyester has it's better off wearing polyester in a loose way, like loose fitted garments. It's better off if you use accessories in polyester. Or just blends. Blends is good too. But in general, polyester isn't going to kill us. But of course, with all the host of thousands of chemicals, that's going to bring a little bit of a problem to the fabrics and fabric treatments. But I would definitely suggest if anyone wants to explore wearing different types of fabrics, Tensel's a great one, Tensel lyocell. I didn't have a chance to remember all the fabrics, but you have a great list on your company profile of all the fabrics you use. But I love bamboo. I love all plants, and plants carry a specific essence, plant essence. There's a spiritual essence behind each plant that has its own specific properties. And you can see that in herbalism. People take specific herbs to heal specific things. And the samurais, the ancient samurai warriors, would dye their undergarments with indigo dye to heal their wounds when they were in battle. So there's some history, ancient history behind botanical herbs, botanical plant-based fibers. But I love hemp, I love rami, I love nettle, linen, bamboo, there's pina, cotton. There's so many to mention that I can't even think of or recall right now, but it's an exciting thing to think that we could, tap into all these different plants and wear them. Especially, it will be more popular down the road, but right now, it is niche.
Yeah. I was just thinking about it, like the popularity of polyester, but then as you're talking about it as like an actual, if you were to think about the nature of polyester, it is a fossil fuel, which is an ancient, compact, old, dead, like living thing. It was once living, And the closer we are to being in contact with something that was just living, so cotton, like just was picked, so it's fresh, it still has some of that vibrance of life in it, versus putting something on your body that has been dead for millions of years. Like there has to be some sort of energetic connection there. Yeah, it's a never thought about it that way, but as you were talking about it, I was like, oh yeah, living things versus very dead, very fossilized, very, it's not even a mineral anymore. Like you can't, there's zero benefit for your body.
That's a great point. And just to add, in Europe, there's a spa that gives people petroleum oil baths, and you sit in a bath of petroleum oil for 15 minutes. But there has been symptoms of people coming out shaking, hyperventilating, and you can only go into this petroleum oil bath for 15 minutes, or else they've said heart problems could occur. So if we can think about petroleum oil, that can do to someone in petroleum oil in its raw state, what that can do to someone for 15 minutes laying in it, and how we're wearing all this polyester, which of course we're not sitting in a petroleum oil bath, but there are some similarities because our plastics are still the plastics are still being worn. But I think it's just the lack of breathability is really the worst thing about polyester. And I really like how you point out, yes, it's really, really, really dead. It's highly acidic too. It's less pH balanced. So because of the concentrated ingredients of the highly fossilized fuel, it makes it slightly acidic. So it's not the perfect type of chemical to put on the body. And like I said, I think that there's so much more science exploration that will be taking place in regards to discovering what we're actually wearing and why we're wearing it. And I will be doing more and more research and discovering, because I find it to be really amazing, and what people are coming up with too, with the new innovations. But polyester is not horrible, and it's still in my wardrobe. It's still in a lot of people's wardrobe. I honor and respect it, but I know that what you and I both agree on is there's a vibration with the plants that makes it healing.
So cool. What are a few facts about your process of, I guess, elevating consciousness and working in healthy fashion that have surprised you along the way?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think I will add that through my own troubles with my wardrobe, working in retail for 15 years, visual merchandising, management, styling, I always worked with the customer, and I always had to dress pretty decent, and I didn't always feel comfortable. So I chose clothes that looked good but didn't feel good. And I don't think I was being really conscious with the types of pieces that I was choosing. So I knew that I had to kind of dress more for me. And it took a lot of evolutionizing my own wardrobe, and realizing that I had to stop wearing, like I couldn't wear nylons. I had to just stop wearing nylons. I know that they're coming up with plant-based nylon now, but the nylons were really irritating my body. And as an energy healer, I've always been really kind of sensitive to specific fabrics, specific silhouettes, colors. And I am very minimal, actually. I'm quite boring with my style. It's very boring, but it's not boring to me, but to some aesthetically, it's pretty minimal. But really too, there's this spiritual battle on earth that we're dealing with. And there's a lot of there's a lot of hell on earth, and I hate to be blunt about it, but that's really what has brought a lot of this toxicity in the fashion industry, in any industry, any industry on earth. There's a lot of toxic problems because of this spiritual battle. So I believe once I was clear about that and aware that there's some kind of spiritual battle, and there's some kind of spiritual consciousness and awakening occurring, that's what really made me shift into writing healthy fashion. And I was visiting all of these vortexes on the West Coast. I was visiting all these sacred sites in energy vortexes. And this is where I began to become more conscious and more interested in fashion for healing and health, and for the alternative arts.
So cool. When it comes to sustainability and the battle for protecting our planet, how would healthy fashion, a healthier relationship with fashion help with that?
Well, you have some really great slogans on your shirts that have to do with that. And I'm trying to recall, you know what I'm talking about. You have a specific slogan on your t-shirt with something about cleaning up the planet.
Yeah, let's clean up before the visitors arrive.
I think that's really important to have messages on shirts, because I think that that's a great form of communication. And you're clearly supporting a movement that everybody really needs to participate in. So I think that's one great piece of being able to usher in fashion and sustainability and the environment. And I would say that it's definitely going to be a natural process too. But what was the question again? I'm sorry.
Oh, it was about sustainability and how like the healthy fashion can help with that.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. So with healthy fashion sustainability, basically this is the concept with plant-based fabrics. And I hate to keep talking about plant-based fabrics, but it's very environmentally focused, because when we wear and choose biodegradable fabrics, we're going to be helping the planet. And if we wear like the polyesters, it's there's a whole host of chemicals that are in it and it doesn't biodegrade and all that. So what I've kind of come up with my research, I've noticed that there's different types of avenues that we can produce plant-based fashion with, and that is seaweed, aquatic fibers, so fabrics from the ocean, fabrics from bodies of water like water hyacinth stem, lotus stem. The desert, we can produce from cactuses and aloe and all of that. Natural agricultural waste, which would be like pine needles. I know that in Europe there's a company that's producing undergarments made out of pine needle viscose, which is
Whoa.
Yeah. And another person is making a wool out of a pine needle, like a alternative wool. So that's another. That was a development from a student, but the viscose from the pine needles is actually in production. So we have the natural agricultural waste, and then we also have we can take and produce fashion from the food industry, like coconuts, coconut shells. We can use the byproducts from the food industry. I know there's one company doing textile dyes with blueberries and herbs and all kinds of things that were originally from the food industry. So what's the other one? And then wild invasive weeds. So cattail fluff can be a nice insulation for garments. There's, what else? Cattails, kuzu root from Japan. That's a wild invasive weed. Bamboo is a wild invasive weed. But these wild invasive weeds can be used and cultivated, which is a great opportunity, because if it's already fast growing, even water hyacinth stem is a very fast growing weed. in a lot of the
Wow.
aquatics. So I believe with all of these different variations, including with the idea that in South America they used 550 different plants alone to produce textiles. I think with the variation, I think we need to, step back and go back to the ancient times to conclude that just a handful of plant-based fibers is not going to cut it. So with the environment, with the plants, the whole spiritual aspect of plants, there's a whole mind, body, spiritual aspect of plants, our plant-human connection, and how we can embrace it through fabric textile production is going to be really important for the future of fashion.
That is so cool. Talking about the water-based plants too, because, we always think about, oh, we got to pull CO2 out of the air. However, the oceans and water, like a lot of bodies of water are losing their oxygen, like their oxygen content for fish and aquatic animals. So yeah, supporting and promoting like agriculture of that, water specific plants would also help the environment. That's so cool.
Yes, that's a good point to add. I hadn't thought about that. And I did watch a recent documentary on the ocean, and that's very true. They're losing oxygen.
Wow, that's super cool how fashion can literally affect the entire planet.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, I'm
um,
excited about it. And, it's very inspiring to me.
you had mentioned a spiritual warfare. How exactly do you see the fashion industry contributing to that? Sorry, stuttering here.
No, that's a good question. There's a hierarchy in fashion, and there's even government involved. And what we're dealing with is all of the money is being given to the higher ups, and the people that are in labor are not really getting paid well. So we're dealing with all this unethical business. And one way we can kind of level and balance that type of issue is people not hoarding the money, businesses not hoarding the money and being able to um, uh, put that money in investments for textile technology. And one thing is that I believe that's really important is the underdeveloped countries, giving them the textile technology that will help them have less labor, less intense labor. And, there's beautiful traditions in artisanal craftsmanship with all these artisans. But I believe too, in order to balance out the world, we need to bring up the underdeveloped countries, give them the textile technology that will help give them more money and less labor, because nobody should be sitting. Well, I'm just saying, like, that there is ethics that are an issue. But also with the spiritual toxicity, I would also like to mention that ready-to-wear brands, they're also all producing polyester, and they're also producing luxury fashion. And I truly believe that everybody deserves luxury fashion. They don't have to spend $2,000 on a t-shirt and still feel luxurious. So I believe balancing out and but high and low fashion, and being able making the mass market, giving them the ability to produce luxurious fashion, and giving the ready-to-wear companies the ability to produce low fashion, and having because I love markets, I love the different sectors of the markets, but I do believe that not being able to have access to that luxury, that sense of luxury that everybody really wants, I think it's really important for us to develop luxury in the mass and market, excuse me, in the mass and contemporary markets as well.
Yeah, super. We only have a little bit of time left, so I'm like cherry picking questions now, which is such a bummer. Let me ask you, is there anything that you would like to discuss in our last few minutes?
Oh, I don't know, really. What would you like to discuss? Would you like to mention some things?
Um, I think, why don't you tell me about your book and sort of how it's structured and what people can expect when it comes out? Because I'm excited about that.
Okay. Yeah. So the book, Healthy Fashion, The Deeper Truths, is already released. It's been released 6 months ago, but it's still very fresh and new. And I still have quite a bit of marketing to do in the book. But the book really is all about fashion for the mind, body, and spirit. So we're delving into different concepts in fashion, and a few that I'd like to mention that I think that you might be interested in is fashion in the elements. I talk about fashion in connection with the fire, air, water, and earth elements, and how when we incorporate outfits that have either a specific element or all four, it will help enhance us, because when, as human beings, we're constantly being affected by the earth's elements, and when we have our own way of connecting with the earth elements, I think that's really important. So that's one concept that I'm actually going to be delving even into more in my second book, which will be coming up. I don't know yet when, but I'm going to be doing quite a bit more research about fashion elements and how we can even analyze in the design field and different design fashion fields. We can analyze fashion through the elements and how it can actually create a supernatural activation. It can supernaturally work for us in a magical way. So we have fashion in the elements and fashion in the five bodies, fashion in the archetypes. I go through, I was inspired by the Jungian archetypes, the magician, the clown, the rebel, the hero, and whatnot. I was inspired by the elements versus the fashion stereotypes we find in fashion. We find, oh, she's a hippie or he's a jock or whatever. And I find that when we discuss fashion and outfits in relation to the archetypes, we are going to be perceiving fashion in a deeper way. So instead of perceiving someone's outfit as, oh, he's a jock, we can look at the Jungian archetypes and consider him as appearing like a hero or the adventurer archetype. So that's just a lot of fun for me. And I think that people are going to really enjoy that, because I think there's a level of brainwashing involved in fashion marketing where we kind of constantly are made to judge. But through the archetypes, it's a way of respecting and honor ourselves and honoring other people, which I think is really fun. But I also do talk a lot about fashion and plants and fabrics and fabric dyes. And I also talk about fashion and sustainability and a little bit of fashion and production and quite a bit of fashion in relation to metaphysics. So if you like metaphysics and new age and alternative healing, you definitely like healthy fashion.
I absolutely love it. I want to have you on again to ask you more questions, because just right there, I had 10 questions pop up into my mind. So I want to have you back for sure.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, but thank you. Where can we find your book?
You can find my book at Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, any large book retailer you can order from. And you can also check out my book page on my website, H as in healthy, F as in fashion campaign.com. And on the book page, it has testimonials and book information and where to buy the book and whatnot.
A huge thank you to Alyssa Couture for following her pursuit of discovery and health within fashion, and for sharing it with all of us. You can find more about her upcoming book, Healthy Fashion, at www.hfcampaign.com. Thank you for listening, and that's a wrap.
Hello, this is Morgan from Los Angeles. Yes, Now is a Holden Court production, written and produced by Courtney Barriger, with original music by Parker Ainsworth, and a special thank you to Alexandra Shuck.